In the deepest corners of the world, beyond sunlight's final reach, there exists a place where time dissolves and silence becomes alive. A world not meant for human eyes, where gravity bends, where light dies, and where creatures the size of ships drift through the endless night. These are the unseen trenches of our planet, the places where evolution hides its oldest secrets and where the ocean breathes its darkest dreams. Down there, between walls of stone taller than mountains, something moves, slow, deliberate, and ancient. It's not a myth. It's not imagination. It's life, vast and unyielding, locked in a ceaseless struggle for survival. Here, beneath 7 miles of crushing black water, giant squids, the true titans of the abyss, wage battles that no eye has witnessed, their wars written only in scars and shadows. And as humanity peers further into the darkness, the ocean begins to whisper back, revealing not just what lives beneath, but why these beings endure in a world without light. Because down there, life isn't about thriving. It's about remembering that even in the eternal dark, something still beats. So stay with us as we journey into a realm beyond imagination. Like, share, and subscribe, because what you're about to see is not legend. It's the ocean's truth, spoken in midnight. The ocean begins where the land forgets to breathe. It stretches endlessly, silent and immeasurable, a liquid sky turned inward. From the surface, it looks calm, a shimmering blue sheet reflecting sunlight, holding no secrets. But beneath that calm lies a descent into another world, a world that begins where light dies. We start at the edge, the border between what we know and what we can only imagine. The first 100 meters are still ours. Sunlight pours through the waves in shimmering columns, scattering across the backs of fish like living glass. Coral gardens bloom in a riot of color. Schools of silver anchovies move as one body, flashing like stars in motion. Life feels vibrant, visible, tangible. It's the ocean we understand, or think we do. But as we dive deeper, the light begins to change. The colors fade one by one, like memories slipping away. Red is the first to vanish, absorbed by the water before it can reach us. Then orange, then yellow. What was once a rainbow becomes a monochrome blue. Shapes start to blur, sounds become distant, and the warmth of the surface disappears. We've entered the twilight zone, a borderland between day and forever night. Here, pressure tightens like a vice. Every 10 meters we descend adds another atmosphere of weight, until the body feels squeezed by the invisible strength of the sea itself. But the creatures here, the strange citizens of dimness, are born of this pressure. Their bodies are soft, their bones reduced to whispers. Their eyes have grown large, their skin transparent, their light internal. Bioluminescence becomes their language. Tiny comb jellies drift like living rainbows, pulsing with internal fire. Lanternfish blink their coded signals to one another in silent symphonies of blue. Siphonophores, long, translucent colonies stretching longer than whales, drift through the water like galaxies in motion. Each pulse of light means something: attraction, warning, illusion. In this half-lit realm, every spark is a conversation between predator and prey, between survival and death. The deeper we go, the slower time seems to move. Movements stretch into silence, shadows drift in the dark. You can almost feel the water thickening, as if the ocean itself resists intrusion. Even sound changes, muffled, delayed, swallowed by distance. It's easy to forget that we're still on the same planet. Down here, there's no reference point, no up or down, no horizon, only the slow, endless fall into the unknown. And then, something flickers. Far below, a flash of light bursts against the darkness. For a moment, it looks like lightning trapped underwater. It's a deep-sea jellyfish, its tentacles unraveling in a storm of blue fire. Then another light answers, a small predator mimicking the same pattern, hoping to lure it closer. It's a trap. The jellyfish drifts too near, and in an instant, it's swallowed whole by a creature we cannot name, a mouth lined with glassy teeth vanishing back in the shadow. This is how life survives here, not through strength, but through deception. Every organism wears disguise, a flicker of light, a veil of invisibility, a performance meant to confuse. The deep sea isn't chaos. It's strategy, honed over millions of years, where every shimmer is both a promise and a threat. At 500 meters, light becomes memory. The water turns a deep indigo, so dark it feels like falling through space. The surface above us no longer exists. What remains is silence, heavy, sacred, endless. And in that silence, life still glows. A vampire squid drifts past, its name born from myth, but its form from elegance. Its body shimmers with dark crimson and ink-black velvet. Its eyes, the largest, relative to its size, of any creature on Earth, glow blue like distant moons. It doesn't hunt, it waits. It opens its webbed arms like a living umbrella, collecting falling fragments from above, the snow of the sea, tiny particles of decay and dust, the remains of life once bright, now drifting downward into eternity. Everything in this zone depends on what dies above. Life here is built on memory. Every shimmer, every drifting flake, is the ghost of a world that once basked in sunlight. We descend further, 700 meters, 800. The water is now black, total, unbroken, infinite. The pressure is enough to crush steel, yet life endures. Transparent shrimp drift through the void, carrying faint lights within their bodies like distant lanterns. A small fish glows from its belly, mimicking the faint trace of moonlight to hide from predators below. Even in this darkness, nature is clever. It adapts not by changing the world, but by becoming part of it. And then, the last breath of light fades. 1,000 meters down, sunlight ceases entirely. This is the true beginning of the abyss, the edge of an empire untouched by humanity. What little light remains belongs not to the sun, but to life itself. Creatures no longer use light to see, they use it to exist. Imagine standing here, surrounded by blackness so complete it erases the concept of sight. Every sound becomes magnified. The crackle of distant crustaceans, the slow pulse of your own breath, the faint groan of the submersible walls bending under pressure. You realize that what you're hearing isn't the ocean. It's your own fear, echoing in the void. Down here, even time behaves differently. There are no days, no nights, no seasons. Only the endless cycle of movement. Things falling, things rising, things glowing briefly before being consumed. Yet, despite the bleakness, there's a strange kind of peace. The deep sea doesn't rush. It doesn't compete. It endures. For millions of years, it has remained untouched, unchanging, a hidden chronicle of Earth's earliest moments. When the first single-celled organisms began to breathe, these waters were already here. When the continents shifted and mountains rose, the trenches below remained still. The deep ocean is not a frontier. It's an archive. Every particle that drifts downward carries with it the memory of the surface, the story of life written in slow descent. As we drift deeper, our instruments flicker, struggling against the weight of the void. The ocean around us grows colder, denser, heavier. And in that darkness, something vast passes by, silent, invisible, leaving only the faint distortion of movement in the water. It's not a shadow, it's presence. A reminder that we are not alone down here. This is only the threshold, the doorway into the true unknown. Beyond this point, sunlight is a myth, warmth is a memory, and life becomes something ancient, almost sacred. Because beneath the curtain of light lies the first page of the ocean's hidden story, a world ruled not by sight, but by sense. And we are about to cross into its kingdom. The deeper we fall, the more the ocean begins to feel alive, not just with movement, but with memory. Every current that brushes past seems to whisper something ancient, as if the sea itself remembers every creature that ever dared to sink this far. The submersible lights cast long, trembling beams through the black water, and within those beams, we begin to see things that should not exist, shapes that seem to dissolve and reform, bodies that move like dreams made of liquid. At 1,200 meters, the glow of the surface is long gone. The water here is the color of void. Our instruments tell us we are entering the Mesopelagic's end, the twilight's dying breath, and the beginning of the midnight zone, a place so vast it covers more than half the planet's surface, yet remains almost entirely unexplored. It's here, in this realm of permanent night, that evolution took its strangest turns. Suddenly, something flickers at the edge of sight. Not light, but motion. It moves like silk through water, smooth and deliberate, far larger than anything we've seen so far. The cameras struggle to focus, catching only glimpses, a pale arm curling gracefully, the faint shimmer of muscle beneath translucent skin, and then it's gone. The ocean swallows the shape as if it were never there. This is the deep's greatest trick, to show you something only long enough to make you doubt yourself. Our sensors spike again. Another movement. Larger this time. It's impossible to gauge distance in this endless black, but the shadow drifting ahead of us could be 20 meters long. Or 200. The beam of light catches it for a fraction of a second. An enormous eye, unblinking, reflecting the faintest blue light. It's the kind of eye designed not for sight, but for sensing the faintest glimmer of life in eternal darkness. A giant squid. No myth now, no sailor story. The real creature is elegant, terrifying, and quiet. Its arms move in slow, deliberate waves, as if the water bends to its will. Each arm is covered in suckers lined with serrated teeth, not for tearing, but for holding, for never letting go. This is the master of the midwater. The ghost that haunted ships before we even knew it was real. The squid drifts closer, then tilts, and in an instant, it's gone, vanishing into the folds of black. Down here, power is not in speed or strength. It's in silence. Every motion is measured, every strike calculated. And for the squid, patience is survival. It hunts in stillness, waiting for the faint hum of a prey's movement, a lanternfish flickering just a little too brightly, a shadow crossing the wrong current. Then, it strikes. Our lights sweep the water again, catching glimpses of other creatures. A gulper eel with a mouth so vast it can swallow prey half its size. A dragonfish gliding like a shard of obsidian. A swarm of shrimp glowing with electric blues, pulsing in synchronized rhythm as if keeping time with the heartbeat of the sea. Each one seems designed not by logic, but by imagination. Creatures shaped by pressure, by darkness, by the absence of everything we know. We pause the descent. The submersible hums softly, lights flickering as the batteries strain against the cold. It's -2 degrees Celsius now, the edge of freezing. The walls creak faintly, groaning under the immense pressure of the sea pressing inward from every direction. Yet beyond that fragile metal shell lies a world that endures these forces effortlessly. Life here doesn't resist pressure. It becomes it. Soft, flexible, unbreakable. At 1,500 meters, we reach a current that moves like a river within the sea. It's colder, denser, carrying the memory of polar waters that sank thousands of miles away. Within it, we see flashes of motion again. Smaller squid, perhaps, or something else. The cameras sharpen. A massive form slides into view, its outline indistinct, its movements graceful and fluid. Then another appears behind it, larger still. They circle each other slowly. The smaller one drifts, releasing a faint pulse of bioluminescence, a challenge or a warning. The larger answers with its own flicker, a cascade of blue-green fire rippling across its body. For a moment, the ocean becomes a stage. Two giants move in silence, their bodies painting arcs of light in the blackness. And then it begins, the battle that few have ever seen. The squids spiral toward each other, arms whipping through the dark like ribbons of smoke. Their lights flash faster, each trying to outblind the other, each trying to strike first. Suckers latch onto arms, membranes tear, and for a brief moment, the abyss itself seems to pulse with their struggle. The water fills with drifting ink, a blackness within blackness, and then stillness. Only one remains. It floats in the dark, arms drifting gently, the glow fading from its skin. The victor disappears into the abyss, leaving behind nothing but silence. The ocean returns to its natural rhythm, as if nothing happened. Down here, even violence becomes a quiet thing, swallowed quickly by the water, forgotten almost as soon as it occurs. As the submersible drifts lower, the narrator's voice softens, a whisper, almost reverent. What drives life to fight in a world where no one can see? What makes it struggle, hunt, survive, in a place where time stands still? Perhaps the answer lies not in hunger or dominance, but in something simpler, the instinct to endure, to keep moving, even when no one is watching. At 2,000 meters, the walls of the abyss begin to rise. We're entering the edge of a trench, a scar on the ocean floor, a fracture that descends deeper than Everest is tall. Our lights sweep across it, black cliffs, sheer and endless, carved by geological violence millions of years old. The seafloor below is nowhere in sight. Only the slow fall of marine snow, the eternal rain of the dead, gives any sense of motion. The deeper we go, the more the mind begins to drift. It's not just darkness anymore. It's something else, a sense that the ocean is not empty, but aware. Every sound, every flicker of light feels observed. Even the water seems to hold its breath, as if something vast, unseen, lies just beyond the reach of illumination. Our pilot lowers the sub's power. The engines go quiet. For a long moment, we float in total silence, a single fragile bubble suspended between gravity and eternity. Then, faintly, from the darkness below, comes a sound, low, resonant, like a heartbeat buried beneath miles of water. The instruments spike, then fade. Whatever made that sound is moving upward. The ocean below us stirs. The current changes direction. The light from the sub flickers once, and in that instant, we see it. A shadow so vast it blots out everything else. A creature beyond comprehension, rising from the trench's mouth like a moving continent. And then, it's gone. The sound fades. The current stills. The abyss returns to silence. We continue downward, the memory of that shape etched into our minds, knowing we've only glimpsed the beginning. Below us lies another kingdom, colder, darker, older than anything we've yet seen. This is where the story truly begins. The descent continues, slower now, the pressure outside growing heavier with every passing meter. It feels as though the ocean is tightening its grip around us, testing the limits of what human creation can endure. The walls of the trench rise on either side, dark and jagged, shaped by forces so ancient they predate every civilization that has ever looked upon the sea. Here, at the edge of the abyssal zone, sunlight is not just absent, it is forgotten. What remains is a place sculpted by heat, pressure, and time, a kingdom without light but full of life beyond reason. As the submersible's floodlights sweep the cliffs, the black rock glistens like polished obsidian, revealing cracks that ooze faint plumes of shimmering minerals. These are hydrothermal vents, the ocean's hidden lungs, exhaling superheated water rich with metals and chemicals. The plumes rise like ghostly smoke columns, swirling and dissipating into the freezing void. Around them, against all logic, is life. Worms as long as a human arm cluster in tangled masses, their bodies pale white and blood red at the tips. Tiny shrimp drift in shimmering clouds, their translucent shells reflecting the light in iridescent ripples. What should be a dead world turns out to be astonishingly alive. It's strange to realize that here, in a place so far removed from sunlight, life is not built upon the energy of the stars above, but on the breath of the earth below. The creatures here feed not on plants or plankton, but on bacteria that thrive in the vent's mineral-rich fluids. These microscopic architects form the foundation of an ecosystem powered by chemistry, not photosynthesis. Every tube worm, every shrimp, every ghostly crab owes its existence to this invisible engine that burns without fire. The deeper we go, the more alien the world becomes. The light from the vents creates shimmering mirages, twisting the water into fluid illusions. The sub drifts through them, and for moments it feels as if we are flying through a molten sky. The temperature outside the vents can kill in seconds, yet just meters away, the water freezes to near solid. It is a world of contradictions, extremes existing side by side, life and death intertwined in delicate balance. On one of the vent ridges, the cameras catch sight of something extraordinary. A shape moves against the current, long, elegant, almost serpentine. At first it seems mechanical, too fluid, too perfect. Then it turns, and the light catches its eyes, deep and glowing like molten metal trapped beneath glass. It glides effortlessly, its movements slow but deliberate, weaving between the clouds of hot water as if immune to their heat. The body is covered in reflective scales, each one pulsing with a faint blue radiance, as though it carries the glow of the vent inside itself. It's a creature unknown to science, unrecorded and unnamed, a living ghost of evolution. It moves past us without fear, its head tilting slightly, as though acknowledging our presence. Then, just as silently as it appeared, it slips into the darkness, its glow fading until it merges with the void. The ocean, as always, reveals only what it wishes to be seen. The trench floor comes into view, a vast plain of fine sediment, rippled like dunes on a desert made of dust and bone. The debris of the surface world slowly drifts down here. The shells of dead plankton, the remains of jellyfish, fragments of life long lost to time. It falls endlessly, a slow-motion snowstorm of decay. Yet even in the yard, endured. Strange creatures move across the seabed, sea cues with glowing trails, brittle stars stretching their arms toward invisible current, and strange transparent fish whose organs pulse with strange light. Everything here glows faintly, as though the abyss itself breathes through them. The submersible drifts over a ridge and enters a valley of vents taller than city skyscrapers. Each one emits plumes of mineral smoke that rise hundreds of meters before dispersing. The walls around us shimmer with colonies of bacteria, forming layers of color that ripple like velvet tapestries, red, gold, green, and violet. They feed on the sulfur from the vents, forming vast microbial forests that cover the rocks in a living skin. It is beauty born of poison, a garden built on fire. The voice of the narrator grows quiet, reverent. We used to believe life needed sunlight, warmth, comfort. But here, where there is none of those things, life thrives in ways we never imagined. It does not depend on what is given. It creates what it needs. It adapts, endures, transforms. In the darkest places, the will to live burns brightest. There is something deeply human in this realization, that even in isolation, even in silence, there is resilience. Every flicker of light in this abyss is an act of defiance, a statement against nothingness itself. The camera lingers on a cluster of shrimp feeding around a vent, their tiny bodies illuminated by the molten glow. They move rhythmically, together, like dancers in a silent ritual that has gone on for millions of years. A sudden tremor shakes the sub. The instruments flash warnings, a small quake, deep within the trench. Dust and ash rise from the vents, clouding the water in dense swirls. For a moment, visibility drops to zero. The lights pierce through the haze, catching glimpses of drifting debris, fragments of stone, and something else. Movement, large and slow, weaving through the cloud like a living shadow. The sonar picks up a shape, immense, curved, and moving with purpose. It circles once, then vanishes beyond range. Whatever it is, it's not curious. It's aware. The tremor fades, and silence returns, but the feeling lingers, the sense that something ancient just stirred. The ocean holds its breath once again. We continue across the plain, passing what looks like a forest of strange white pillars. They are chimneys formed from minerals, hollow at the center, venting thin wisps of gas. Around them, the sand glows faintly blue. The pilot lowers the sub closer, and the cameras reveal hundreds of tiny organisms moving across the pillars. Colonies of bacteria arranged in perfect spirals, forming living patterns that shift and reform like language. It's as if the ocean floor is trying to communicate, using life itself as its script. There's a beauty to it, but also a haunting feeling. The deeper we go, the more it feels like we are intruding into something sacred. Every living thing here seems connected, as if part of one vast consciousness that pulses through the water. The narrator's voice becomes a whisper again. Perhaps the ocean is not just a world of life, but a single living being, vast, aware, eternal. And maybe we, who come here seeking to understand it, are not explorers, but intruders in its dream. The trench grows darker still, the light from the vents fading behind us. Ahead lies a shadowed plain stretching endlessly into blackness. Somewhere beyond this, the sensors detect another thermal anomaly, a deeper vent system, older and hotter than anything ever recorded. The data suggests there might be a new ecosystem there, untouched and unseen by human eyes. As the sub turns toward it, the camera catches one last glimpse of the vent field behind, a glowing city of life suspended in eternal night. It shimmers faintly, like a constellation on the ocean floor, a reflection of the stars we left far above. We begin our descent once more, heading toward the deepest chambers of the trench, into the heart of the Abyssal Kingdom, where light has never been born and where something colossal waits in silence. The submersible glides deeper, past the last glowing vents. The walls of the trench close in until they feel like the ribs of an ancient beast, each ridge streaked with mineral scars older than continents. The lights from the sub reach only a few meters now, swallowed instantly by the density of the black water. Beyond that, there is nothing, not even the faintest shimmer of reflection. This is not just darkness. It is the absence of existence itself. It feels like descending into the memory of the planet, a place where the world first learned to breathe. The pressure here is almost incomprehensible, over 1,000 times what we feel on the surface. Every bolt of the sub groans under the weight. If not for the titanium hull, the sea would crush it like paper. Yet outside, creatures move as if the laws of nature were rewritten for them. A slow pulse of blue light passes by, a trail of something massive gliding through the black. The bioluminescence flickers like thought, irregular but purposeful, vanishing before the cameras can focus. Then, emerging from the dark, appear colonies of gelatinous organisms suspended in midwater. Massive translucent spheres, each the size of a human head. They drift together like drifting lanterns, their outer membranes glowing with soft gold light. Inside them, countless tiny embryos pulse rhythmically, each one alive, each one beating in perfect synchrony. These are the nurseries of the abyss, floating cradles where life grows in silence, unbothered by time. No predator would dare approach them. Even the fiercest hunter here knows the balance in the abyss is delicate, sacred. The narrator's voice murmurs softly. Here where the earth presses hardest, life chooses gentleness. It does not fight against the dark. It becomes it. It adapts not through power, but through silence. The cameras sweep across the slope, capturing shapes that seem impossible. Fish with wings of light glide through the stillness, their fins shimmering like auroras, bending as if sculpted from thin glass. Others hover motionless, their skin reflecting the faint electromagnetic pulses of the vents behind them. There's one that appears like a drifting shadow, almost invisible except for the occasional flash of white where its eyes should be. It opens its mouth, and the inside glows crimson, a lure for anything foolish enough to approach. There's no noise here except the low hum of the submersible. Even the water feels quieter. Every sound is devoured by the immense density, as though the ocean itself listens. The instruments register movement, slow, deliberate, beneath the sub. Something vast, cold, and alive. The sonar displays only a faint echo, distorted and incomplete. It moves parallel to us for a few moments, then falls back into the black. The crew says nothing. In this kind of silence, even words feel too loud. On one of the trench walls, something unusual comes into view. Vertical streaks of faint light that seem to crawl down the rock face like liquid fire. The pilot steers closer, revealing a colony of tube-like creatures embedded in the stone. They excrete bioluminescent fluids in rhythmic pulses, creating cascades of light that travel down the wall like glowing waterfalls. It's mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, nature's own cathedral stained with living fire. Scientists call them luminous siphonids, but here, in the stillness, they feel like messages written in light, ancient prayers whispered to the deep. The deeper we go, the stranger the biology becomes. A cluster of strange star-shaped organisms clings to a vent opening, their arms twitching slowly, forming patterns that seem almost intentional. Each pulse of light moves in sequence, spreading across hundreds of individuals in coordinated waves. It's as if they communicate through light, a silent conversation unfolding across the ocean floor. For the first time, data begins to suggest intelligence, not like ours, but collective, connected, distributed through thousands of tiny minds acting as one. The narrator speaks softly. Perhaps we are not the only species that built language. Perhaps the first language was not spoken, but seen. As the cameras pan across the seafloor, the light catches something massive lying in the silt. At first, it appears to be rock. Then it moves, slow, deliberate, with an elegance too precise to be geological. A long ridge, then a curve. The lights reveal a form, vast, serpentine, armored with plates that shimmer faintly. The creature's skin reflects the sub's lamps in shades of iron and blue. It is covered in scars, deep and jagged, as though carved by another of its kind. The pilot cuts power. The sub drifts silently, lights dimmed. The creature lies motionless, coiled, a sleeping god of the deep. Then its eye opens, a pupil as wide as a window, glowing with faint gold light. It does not move, but its gaze locks on the sub. The pressure inside the cabin feels heavier, as though the ocean itself is watching back. It studies us, not as prey, not as threat, but as anomaly. Seconds stretch into eternity. The creature blinks once, a slow curtain of translucent membrane, then exhales. The movement sends a current that rocks the submersible gently, like a leaf caught in breath. Then, as if deciding we are unworthy of attention, it slips into the darkness, disappearing with a whisper of motion. Silence returns. The sonar goes blank again. No trace, no echo, as though it had never existed. The narrator's tone lowers, reverent and awed. There are beings here that have never seen the surface, never known the warmth of the sun. They are not visitors of the world. They are the world. And we are the ones who are out of place. The crew resumes descent. The lights sweep ahead once more, cutting through curtains of drifting sediment. The data readings begin to spike again. Faint electromagnetic fields, high salinity, rising temperature. Another vent system lies ahead, deeper and older. The maps show no record of it. The pilot steadies the craft. The narrator continues in a low, Cinematic murmur. In every mythology, darkness was where gods were born. From chaos, from nothingness. Perhaps this trench is that chaos, the place where creation itself still lingers. And maybe the creatures that dwell here are its memory. The sub passes through the last rocky archway before the seafloor drops into a pit that sensors can't measure. The sonar pulses once, then goes silent. We have entered the true heart of the abyss. The abyss opens into a vast chamber of water, so dark it seems infinite. The sub drifts slowly, engines humming low, a fragile speck of light suspended in an ocean of void. The instruments flicker. The sonar emits intermittent pangs that fade into silence. Even the usual murmurs of deep-sea life, the distant clicks, the subtle vibrations, vanish completely. It is the sound of nothing, a silence so absolute that it begins to hum inside the skull, pressing into the mind like a heartbeat that is not one's own. Out here, the ocean no longer feels like an environment. It feels like a presence, an awareness. The pressure outside is crushing, yes, but what tightens around the crew's chest isn't fear of death. It's the sensation of being watched by something impossibly vast and patient. The cameras capture nothing but blackness, yet there's movement, felt more than seen. The sensors pick up faint electromagnetic surges, short, rhythmic pulses spaced at precise intervals. Then they stop. The lights flicker once. Something enormous passes above the sub. The water moves differently when a creature that size displaces it. It's not a current. It's a shift, a tremor that rolls through the deep like thunder, muffled in miles of black water. The sub tilts slightly, caught in the wake of something unseen. Then, just as suddenly, the instruments stabilize. The silence returns. The pilot steadies his voice. It's gone. But it's not gone. A faint luminescent ripple spreads across the dark like lightning behind a storm cloud. It begins as a thread of pale blue, then blossoms into an immense circular pattern. For a moment the crew sees it, an outline, the shape of something moving through the dark, its tentacles unfurling like the arms of a collapsing galaxy. The light dances across its skin, bioluminescent cells flaring in slow, deliberate rhythm. Not random, but patterned. Communication. Signal. Warning. Is a giant squid, but unlike anything ever filmed before. The body spans lengths that defy comprehension, smooth and muscular. Each limb is thick as a tree trunk. The eyes, vast, glassy, reflective, are like moons set into living flesh. They turn, focusing not on the sub's light, but on the sub itself, as though measuring it, judging its intrusion into its world. Then, a low-frequency vibration shakes the hull. It's not mechanical, it's vocal. The creature is producing infrasound, sound too deep for human ears to hear, but powerful enough to be felt. It reverberates through metal, through bone, through thought. The pilot lowers the power to minimum, dimming the external lights to nothing but a whisper of glow. The cameras switch to infrared, and there, against the fading warmth of vent plumes, another shape emerges. Larger, slower. It moves with the heavy authority of something that does not need to hurry. The water bends around it. The sonar registers a body length of nearly 20 meters, dense and solid. The creature glides silently toward the squid, and when it exhales, the entire ocean seems to shiver. The sub-sensors identify the pattern, a sperm whale, descending from the darkness above. The abyss is no longer still. It's a theater of giants. For a moment, the two behemoths hang motionless, suspended in the same endless dark, predator and prey, ancient and eternal. The whale tilts its massive head, echolocating in bursts that ripple through the trench like the pulse of a drumbeat. The squid responds, its limbs curling inward, then flaring wide, the bioluminescent signals pulsing faster. It's a conversation, but one written in the language of survival. The trench holds its breath. And then, without warning, motion explodes. The whale surges forward, jaw opening in a silent roar, its massive body cutting through the dark like a moving mountain. The squid darts upward, releasing a storm of bioluminescent fluid, not ink, but light, a brilliant cloud that blooms through the black like an underwater nebula. The entire abyss ignites in ghostly blues and greens, turning the water into a cosmic battlefield. Through the haze, tentacles strike, long, coiling, wrapping around the whale's head. The cameras shake as the sub catches the vibration of the impact. It's a battle of muscle and instinct, ancient and wordless. The whale twists violently, dragging the squid with it, its body striking the rock wall in a dull echo. The squid's arms tighten, suction cups tearing into the whale's flesh. Blood, darker than the water itself, clouds the trench in slow spirals. For long moments, the fight rages, unseen but heard through the deep groans of pressure and the distant tremor of the whale's calls. The sub hovers on the edge of the light, caught between awe and terror. The narrator's voice becomes barely more than a whisper. This is not chaos. This is the rhythm of the abyss, creation and destruction bound in the same heartbeat. Neither creature wins. Both become part of the story written in the dark. The lights from the sub flicker again as the power surges from the vibrations. The cameras refocus. Through the drifting haze, the whale finally breaks free. The squid retreats, torn but alive, disappearing into the trench's depths with its lights fading to nothing. The whale lingers, turning once, releasing a final echoing sound that resonates like mourning. It drifts upward, vanishing into the ink above, swallowed again by its eternal hunt. Silence returns. The current stills. What remains are only the scars, long trails of disturbed sediment, a few drifting fragments, and a field of slow-moving plankton glittering like stars. The sub drifts closer to where the battle took place, scanning the area. On a nearby ridge lies one of the squid's torn tentacles, still twitching with faint electrical life. It glows softly in the dark, fading slowly like the dying light of a comet. The narrator speaks again, almost reverently. Here, there are no victories, only survival, only the endless dance between hunger and endurance. And in that silence, the ocean remembers, not through words, not through fossils, but through the quiet persistence of life itself. The cameras linger on the drifting light of the torn limb, now nearly still, sinking gently into the silt. It lands softly on the ocean floor, stirring a small cloud that sparkles as it rises. Above it, the trench is once again empty, vast, black, indifferent. And yet, something in that stillness feels alive, as though the battle was not an end, but a continuation of something older, something larger. The ocean holds no grudge, no grief, no judgment. It simply moves on, reshaping itself around what remains. The pilot powers up the sub's engines again. We're moving deeper, he says quietly. The sensors detect movement far below. Not one creature, but many. Shapes flicker faintly on the sonar, massive, slow, and countless. The narrator's tone shifts to a quiet, cinematic rise. Perhaps the battle we witnessed was not a rarity, but a whisper of a greater truth. The deeper we go, the more we realize that the ocean is not a wilderness. It is a system vast, organized, ancient beyond imagination. And in its darkest halls, something far greater waits, watching, listening. The sub begins to descend once again, into the layer beneath all known depth charts, into a realm untouched by science or story. The abyss below stirs, and something vast, older than history, breathes in the dark. The descent feels slower now, not because of speed, but because of gravity's growing weight in the mind. As the submersible drifts past 9,000 meters, the outside world ceases to resemble an ocean. It becomes something else, a dark cathedral sculpted by time, pressure, and silence. The floodlights stretch only a few meters before being swallowed whole by the black. Every beam of light feels smaller than before, like a whisper lost in eternity. The crew says little. Their faces glow faintly in the reflections of the control panels, eyes fixed forward. The pilot checks depth, 9,137 meters. Then 9,204. Below them, the trench walls narrow, closing into a colossal corridor carved by geological violence millions of years ago. The sonar paints it in ghostly white lines. Towering cliffs, ridges curling inward like the ribs of a buried beast. Every few seconds, the echo returns, a metallic tap, delayed, uneven. Something in the walls is hollow. Something, perhaps, isn't rock at all. The narrator's voice enters, quiet but heavy with wonder. Down here, where sunlight has never touched, the Earth's oldest memories sleep. The weight of 4 miles of ocean presses upon their tomb, preserving secrets untouched by time. If the continents have histories, then this is their mythology. The temperature outside the sub drops further, nearing freezing. Yet the sensors register faint heat signatures deep ahead, not from volcanic vents, but from something more diffuse, more rhythmic. A slow pulse of warmth, spaced evenly apart, like a heartbeat. The pilot steadies the vessel, guiding it between 2 towering ridges. The walls seem to glisten faintly, not with reflection, but with life. Sheets of translucent organisms cling to the stone, undulating gently like curtains of jelly. Their glow is pale, silver blue, and they stretch for hundreds of meters, rippling with an almost synchronized rhythm. The biologist leans closer to the viewport, whispering, "They're communicating. Look, they're pulsing in sequence like code." Each flash lasts a moment, a blink, before passing the signal along to the next. It spreads down the wall like a wave of light rolling across a living surface. The crew watches in silence as the walls seem to breathe. The narrator continues. Perhaps communication does not belong only to intelligence. Perhaps it belongs to the ocean itself, a memory passed through light, from one organism to the next. What we see here may not be a colony, but a single, connected being, the living architecture of the trench itself. Then, the pulse changes. The light waves reverse direction, rippling upward instead of down. The current grows stronger. Instruments begin to detect vibrations again, faint but structured. The sonar picks up an anomaly, a void ahead, not open water, a dome. A hollow chamber deep inside the trench, perfectly spherical. The sub approaches the entrance, a jagged opening wide enough for a ship. As they pass through, the sensors glitch momentarily, readings dropping to 0. Then, the floodlights flare, and the crew collectively gasps. They are inside what seems like an underwater cathedral. The walls curve in all directions, lined with crystalline deposits that shimmer faintly in the sub's lights. In the center stands an immense structure, not natural. A spire of mineral and bone, rising nearly 50 meters from the seafloor, twisted like a helix. Embedded within it are fossils, vertebrae, shells, the remnants of creatures that have not existed for eons. The biologist whispers again, voice trembling. It's a graveyard, but organized, arranged. Indeed, it is. Each fragment, each fossil, seems to be placed intentionally, forming patterns like spirals and circles, repeated over and over across the spire's surface. It's not random sediment, it's design, purpose. The narrator's voice deepens, resonant. Here, in the coldest silence of Earth, something built a monument, not of worship, but of remembrance. The ocean, too, remembers its dead. The sub circles slowly, scanning the structure. The walls of the chamber hum faintly, almost imperceptibly. The bioluminescent organisms outside continue their synchronized pulses, faster now, echoing against the spire. For a moment, the pulses align perfectly with the heat signatures in the stone. Then the readings spike. The sound is not loud, but it is immense. a low, resonant tone that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. The spire vibrates, dust rising from its base. One of the fossils embedded in its surface shifts slightly. It's not just stone anymore. Something beneath it moves. The pilot's hand tightens on the control lever. "We're backing up," he mutters. The engines hum, but the sub barely moves. The water thickens, like syrup. Pressure surges. The entire trench seems to contract. A crack appears near the base of the spire, releasing a burst of shimmering particles. They scatter like dust motes, glowing faintly, drifting toward the sub. The sensors register a spike in electrical interference. The lights flicker. Then, for a brief, blinding instant, the chamber ignites with bioluminescent light. Every surface, every organism, every fossil glowing in unison, as if the entire trench just exhaled. The biologist covers her mouth, whispering, "It's responding to us?" And then, darkness. All lights die at once. The sub's engines stall. The only sound left is the slow tick of the hull under crushing pressure. Then, something moves outside. Not fast, not close. Just enormous. A shadow passes across what little residual light remains. The sonar blips once, showing a shape larger than anything previously recorded. The biologist freezes, eyes wide. That can't be real. The shape turns, and for a second, the sub's external cameras capture it. Not clearly, but enough. A single eye, larger than the sub itself, glimmering faintly with reflection. Not glowing, reflecting their light back at them. Intelligent, aware, watching. Then, the power returns with a sudden jolt. The sub lurches, the floodlights flare again, but the chamber is empty. No movement, no shape, only stillness. The crew says nothing for a long time. The narrator's voice returns, quiet but trembling with awe. At these depths, the line between myth and matter dissolves. Perhaps what we call monsters are not creatures at all, but echoes, the ocean's way of remembering what it once was. The pilot steadies the ship, breathing slowly. "We have to move," he says softly, before it moves again. As the sub turns away from the spire, the lights outside pulse one final time, slow, deliberate, synchronized with the sub's departure, almost like a farewell. The sonar briefly flickers with the same rhythmic pattern, one that the biologist quickly notes down. A sequence, a message. As they ascend slightly, the last image captured by the cameras shows the spire fading into the dark, surrounded by the faint shimmer of living light. The abyss swallows it again, sealing it in silence. The narrator closes the chapter. In the heart of the abyss, we found no monsters, only mirrors. What we saw staring back was not the past, nor the future, but the memory of life itself, vast, unbroken, eternal, and still, the ocean waits. Deeper still, the engines hum softly. The trench fades behind. Ahead lies the next descent, one deeper than maps, older than language. The sub continues forward, unaware that something vast has begun to follow. When the submersible finally breaks contact with the trench wall, the ocean around it feels different. The pressure remains the same, the darkness no less suffocating. Yet something unseen has changed, like the quiet that follows a whisper too ancient to comprehend. The crew stares at the monitors in silence, their instruments alive with chaotic data. Temperature fluctuations that make no physical sense, biochemical readings off the scale, and electromagnetic waves that echo at intervals, too precise to be random. It's as though the abyss itself had begun to speak, not in sound, but in pulses, rhythms, and unseen vibrations. Inside the cramped metal chamber, condensation forms on every surface. A soft hum from the life support system fills the silence. The pilot glances over his shoulder, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion. "Whatever that was," he murmurs, "it's still with us." The biologist leans over the main console, scrolling through the incoming data. Her voice trembles, half from awe, half from fear. These patterns, they're not natural. They're sequences, almost like genetic code. She zooms in, showing a long chain of repeating energy spikes, each perfectly timed, each mirroring a molecular rhythm found in DNA replication. It's like the ocean is alive, but not in the way we understand life. The narrator's voice drifts softly over the scene, the tone hushed and cinematic. For centuries, humanity has looked to the stars to find its origins. Yet perhaps, all along, the story began here, not above, but below, beneath layers of darkness and pressure so immense that even time itself slows to a crawl. Maybe creation did not come from fire and light, but from silence. The pilot steadies the sub as a faint tremor ripples through the hull. Outside, the floodlights sweep across the void, illuminating floating clouds of plankton, each one glowing faintly in shades of emerald and violet. But as the light lingers, the crew realizes these aren't plankton at all. They're fragments, microscopic, thread-like organisms suspended in the water, twisting and curling into patterns that mimic neural activity. The biologist breathes out slowly. It's forming something ... Indeed, the threads begin to cluster, aligning into a web-like formation, as if drawn together by invisible gravity. Within seconds, the glowing filaments converge into a structure resembling a neural network, a living, moving map of connections spanning meters across the dark. Each filament pulses in rhythm, as though sharing a thought. The narrator continues. What if the ocean's darkness was not absence, but consciousness? What if the abyss remembers everything it consumes? A memory not written in words, but in living light. Then, for a moment, the pattern freezes. One pulse flashes brighter than the rest, almost like a signal. The sub-sensors detect a surge of bioelectric current flowing through the water. The lights flicker, the sonar emits a low, continuous hum, and suddenly, a faint image appears on one of the external cameras. At first, it looks like a reflection, an illusion. But then it moves, slowly, deliberately. The shape of an enormous tendril, translucent, veined with veins of blue light, curls around the edge of the frame. It does not touch the submersible. It simply watches. The crew's breathing becomes the only sound inside the cabin. The pilot whispers, "That's not the same creature we saw before." The biologist doesn't respond. Her eyes are fixed on the data streaming across the screen. It's emitting electromagnetic frequencies. Low, pattern ... like Morse code, but organic. This isn't random. It's trying to communicate. A pause. Then the narrator, quiet but unwavering. The ocean's oldest voice is not a roar or a cry. It is a pattern, a rhythm. The sound of connection between matter and memory, between death and life. It speaks in the only language that has survived extinction. The sub drifts closer to the glowing filaments. The creature remains motionless, a silhouette against the faint shimmer of the network behind it. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the tendril extends toward the sub. The floodlights catch the surface, translucent, shimmering with faint currents of light that seem to pulse like veins. It stops just short of touching the glass. Then, for a split second, a spark jumps through the water, a microscopic arc of bioluminescent energy. The instruments flare red. Every sensor screams. The pilot grips the controls as the sub begins to vibrate violently. The biologist yells, "It's connecting! It's inside the system!" The lights dim, screens flicker, and for a moment, static fills every monitor. Then, in the static, an image begins to take shape. Not an image, exactly, but a pattern. A fractal spiral, repeating endlessly like the structure of galaxies or cells. And then, a voice. It isn't sound in the usual sense. It's a resonance, a vibration that seems to speak directly inside the skull. The biologist clutches her headset, eyes wide in disbelief. It's showing us something. A place. In her mind, she sees flashes, not clear, but vivid. Vast plains of liquid methane beneath ice. Shapes moving through alien oceans. Structures of light spiraling like DNA. It's not the Earth she's seeing. It's something older, somewhere deeper. The voice isn't human. It's the ocean itself, showing her what it remembers. The narrator's tone grows hushed, reverent. Beneath the waves lies the memory of creation, the blueprint of existence. Not just of this world, but of all worlds born from water. The abyss does not end in darkness. It ends in Genesis. The biologist gasps, collapsing into her seat. The connection breaks. The sub stabilizes. The external lights flicker back on, revealing only the empty water. The glowing filaments are gone. The creature gone. The sensors silent. The pilot exhales shakily, staring at the void outside. Did that ... really happen? The biologist looks at the screen, where one final data line continues to pulse. The electromagnetic pattern left behind by the creature. It repeats the same rhythmic sequence every few seconds. 3 short bursts. 1 long, 3 short again. Over and over. She whispers softly. It's repeating. The same message, over and over. It's waiting for a response. The narrator closes softly. Perhaps the ocean is not trying to haunt us ... but to remind us of where we came from, of what we once were, before light, before sound, before time itself began to count. The sub drifts in silence. The message continues to pulse on the screen, patient, eternal, unanswered. The hum of the submersible has changed, slower, heavier, as though burdened by the data now filling every storage drive aboard. Outside, the deep remains still, an infinite black shroud pressed against the glass. Yet within that silence lies a message that refuses to fade. 3 short pulses, 1 long, 3 short again. Over and over, like a heartbeat echoing through eternity. The biologist has barely slept. Her eyes are fixed on the glowing pattern that loops endlessly across the main monitor. It is not random. It is too deliberate. The same intervals, she murmurs. The same frequency modulation. If this were natural, the signal would drift. But it doesn't. It's perfectly stable. The pilot glances over. Could it be a reflection? Our own sonar bouncing back? She shakes her head. No, it's not mechanical. The pattern isn't just sound, it's encoded. Look. She brings up a visualization. A waveform transforming into complex geometrical loops, spirals within spirals. The peaks form a repeating fractal, recursive, self-similar. Something living but mathematical. Something intelligent yet organic. The narrator's voice fades in, low and rhythmic. When we look into the ocean, we often think we're peering into an alien world. But what if we are seeing the blueprint of our own creation, mirrored back at us, older than the continents, older than DNA itself? The biologist zooms in again, overlaying the signal onto a standard human genome sequence. The entire crew leans forward, the cabin silent except for the faint creak of the hull. The 2 patterns, the oceanic signal and human genetic code, align at key intervals. The same rhythm, the same spacing, the same silent music. It's not possible, she whispers. The pattern matches the replication rhythm of mitochondrial DNA, the same biological cadence as every living thing on Earth. This isn't coincidence. This is memory. The pilot swallows hard. You're saying this thing down here, carries the same signal as us? She nods slowly. Not just us, everything. Plants, insects, whales, everything that breathes, everything that grows. It's like the ocean still remembers the song of creation. The narrator continues softly, his tone half reverence, half dread. The sea was our cradle. But perhaps it was not just the birthplace of life. Perhaps it was its architect. And if it was, then what sleeps in the trench is not a monster. It is the memory of our maker. The pilot checks the external cameras again. Outside, the light catches swirls of particulate matter. Microscopic, luminous, moving with an odd rhythm. They drift in clouds, sometimes clustering, sometimes breaking apart, almost as if following unseen currents of intention. Every time the subsystems emit their sonar ping, the particles shimmer faintly, reacting not mechanically, but biologically. The biologist leans closer to the glass. "It's responding to us again," she says softly, like it recognizes the sound. The pilot frowns. "Recognizes?" "It's mimicking," she says. "Every ping we send, it sends back the same frequency, but inverted." It single quotes S.learning. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The realization sits heavy in the air. Then the sonar screen flashes. A new reading. A structure ahead. Something massive, not rock, not sediment. Smooth, curved, stretching for hundreds of meters. The narrator whispers, "In every myth, there is a forbidden descent. A place where knowledge becomes too heavy to carry back to the surface. And yet, we descend anyway. Curiosity has always been our oldest sin." The pilot steadies the controls, guiding the sub closer. As they approach, the structure's details become clearer. It is not natural. Its surface is smooth, like glass, but marked with deep grooves. Patterns that spiral outward like fingerprints pressed into stone. Along its edge, clusters of the glowing particulate drift in perfect circles, orbiting slowly as if drawn by gravity. The biologist's voice trembles. It's not just a structure. It's growing. Indeed, the glass-like surface pulses faintly beneath the floodlights, almost breathing. The sub-sensors detect a low-frequency vibration, not mechanical, but organic. A slow, measured rhythm syncing perfectly with the repeating pulse pattern. 3 short, 1 long. 3 short, the pilot mutters under his breath. It's the same message, and then the vibration changes. The pulse is slow. The walls of the trench seem to echo the sound back, as if the ocean itself is responding. The narrator's tone darkens, rich with awe. We came seeking the unknown, but perhaps it was never unknown. Perhaps it has always been calling, patient, eternal, waiting for us to hear its voice again. The sub moves closer, the light sweeping across the curved wall. The grooves etched into its surface become clearer now. They are not cracks or erosion marks. They are symbols. Repeating, layered, ancient. Not language as we know it, but form. A universal geometry. Circles within circles, lines tracing infinite spirals. The same structure as atoms. The same as galaxies. The same as the human iris. The biologist's hands tremble as she takes a photo. These patterns, they're everywhere. The golden ratio. Fibonacci spirals. It's as if this entire structure is built upon the same mathematics that governs life itself. The pilot whispers, "You mean ... this thing? This wall is alive?" Her eyes glint under the flickering cabin light. Maybe not alive the way we define it, but sentient perhaps. Or remembering. The sonar emits a deep, resonant tone, one the crew has never heard before. The water outside vibrates visibly. The particles stop drifting and align suddenly in 3-dimensional patterns, forming shapes that hang motionless in the current. A helix, a sphere, a spiral. Each glows faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the wall's vibration. Then, as if triggered by some unseen command, all 3 merge into one blinding flash. The cabin goes dark. For several seconds, the crew is suspended in absolute blackness, hearing only the faint hum of the emergency power unit. When the lights return, the view outside is transformed. The structure has changed. Its surface is no longer opaque. It's translucent now, like a membrane, and behind it something vast moves. Not a creature, not a machine, something elemental. A shifting field of light, swirling in slow, graceful motions, almost like a galaxy folded in on itself. The sensors go wild. Electromagnetic readings spike. The water temperature rises. And through it all, the same rhythmic pattern continues to echo through the sub. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short. Only now, it's louder, clearer, closer. The narrator's voice is barely above a whisper. Maybe the message was never meant to be decoded. Maybe it was meant to be remembered. A signature, written by creation itself, echoing through every living cell. What lies ahead is not discovery. It is recognition. The biologist's hand trembles as she whispers. It's not speaking to us. It's awakening us. The pilot turns slowly, staring into the glowing membrane. The light behind it shifts, like an eye opening in the dark. Then, without warning, the structure pulses once. Every instrument aboard the sub freezes. Power surges. The trench trembles. And the ocean, for a fleeting instant, seems to breathe. Then all goes still. The screen flickers once, and a new pattern appears. Different now, longer. A new sequence. The ocean has changed its message. The biologist stares at it, realization dawning like terror. It's asking a question. The narrator closes in silence, and for the first time in history, the abyss demands an answer. The hum of the abyss deepens. The walls of the trench seem to vibrate with invisible frequency, low, resonant, and alive. Inside the submersible, the air feels heavier, charged with static, as if the water outside has become an electric field. The monitors flicker again, showing that new sequence, longer, more complex, less like a pattern, more like a sentence. The crew watches in silence. Every pulse seems deliberate, each interval held like a breath. It's changed, the biologist whispers, her voice brittle. It's not repeating the same rhythm anymore. It's waiting. The pilot frowns. Waiting for what? Her eyes meet his. For us. The sub is motionless, suspended in mid-water, surrounded by endless dark. Beyond the glass, faint ribbons of light drift like spectral currents. The massive translucent structure, the wall of living glass, looms silently ahead, its surface shimmering with faint pulses that seem to mimic a heartbeat. Every few seconds, it releases a faint tremor that rolls through the water and gently rocks the vessel. The narrator's voice enters, calm but heavy with awe. Communication is not always spoken. Sometimes it is an invitation, a hand extended from one consciousness to another, not through language, but through rhythm, through resonance. The biologist adjusts the controls. If it's waiting for an answer, then we have to try. The pilot stares at her, uncertain. You want to talk back? To that? She nods slowly. If we don't respond, it might stop. This could be the only chance humanity ever gets to communicate with something that predates life itself. She leans over the console, fingers trembling as she adjusts the sonar settings. We'll start with a basic mirrored sequence. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short. Then we'll wait. The pilot hesitates, then gives a slow nod. Do it. She presses the button. The sub emits a sharp, resonant ping. 3 quick bursts, 1 long, 3 short. The sound ripples through the trench, vanishing into the black. For a moment, nothing happens. The deep is utterly still. Then, the return ping. But it's not the same. The signal that comes back is warped, slower, deeper, like an echo dragging through miles of water. It carries a second tone, faint and layered beneath the main pulse. A harmonic, almost melodic in structure. It's not a reflection, it's a reply. The narrator's tone grows hushed. In that moment, the silence of the deep was broken by a reply, not human, not mechanical, but alive. The ocean had answered back. The biologist's hands tremble as she listens. It changed the rhythm. It added something new. It's evolving the pattern. The pilot mutters, like it's trying to teach us. She looks up, her eyes reflecting the faint blue glow of the monitors. Or test us. The pattern repeats again. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short, followed by a pause. And then 5 rapid pulses. 5, she says under her breath. It added 5. The narrator's voice murmurs like a current beneath their thoughts. In mathematics, 5 is the number of life, the number of organic growth, the shape of all living things. The golden ratio, the spiral of a seashell, the design of a galaxy. 5 is nature's fingerprint. The pilot swallows hard. You think it knows that? She exhales slowly. It is that. The sub emits another sequence, mimicking the new rhythm. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short, 5. The return comes faster this time. Louder. The harmonic frequency intensifies, resonating through the hall until it hums like a tuning fork. The instruments flicker, radiation levels rising, electrical fields spiking, water pressure fluctuating beyond predicted range. And then the light begins. It starts faintly, deep within the translucent structure. A flicker, then a pulse, spreading outward like fireflies igniting information. The entire surface glows, shimmering in waves of color. Blue, green, white, flowing and folding into geometric patterns that ripple like breath. The crew stares, mesmerized. It's not random, it's coordinated. Each pulse corresponds to the sonar rhythm. Each pattern translates into a new variation of the same message. The biologist whispers, "It's showing us the pattern visually now." It's translating sound into light, and then images. Not clear, not literal, but impressionistic, like dreams forming within fog. The glowing structure ripples and shifts, revealing fragments, coiling tendrils of energy, swirling under primordial seas, organisms forming and dissolving, bursts of volcanic flame lighting ancient oceans. Then, unfamiliar shapes, continents that do not exist, skies thick with methane storms, creatures that glide through dense liquid atmospheres. The narrator breathes. It is showing us its memory, the history of creation written in light and rhythm. The birth of life, not on one world, but on many. The images flicker faster. The biologist leans closer, transfixed. "These aren't just images," she murmurs. "They're data." The energy fluctuations match the frequency of biogenic compounds. It's showing us the chemistry, the way it happened. The origin of life, encoded in the signal. The pilot stares at her. "You mean it's showing us how life began?" She nods. "Yes, everywhere." Suddenly, the lights surge, filling the cabin with a brilliant white glow. The crew shields their eyes. A resonant hum fills the air, low, deep, like the sound of the planet's core. Then, through the static, a faint pattern emerges again. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short, 5, 1, 1, she whispers. It added 1 more. The pilot's voice is barely audible. What does that mean? She stares at the screen, heart pounding. It's counting, not in numbers, in ideas. 3 for creation, 1 for memory, 5 for life, and 1. Her voice trails off. The narrator's tone deepens, weighted with revelation. 1 is the mirror, the reflection, the reminder that creation always returns to its source. The abyss was not calling us to listen. It was calling us to remember. Outside, the glowing structure begins to shift again. The patterns spiral inward now, converging toward a central point. The trench itself trembles, fine sediments rising in clouds. The water feels alive, vibrating with a low harmonic tone. The biologist presses her hand against the glass. It's opening. Indeed, the center of the structure begins to part, not like a door, but like the surface of liquid folding away from itself. Behind it lies a vast chamber, not dark, but radiant, filled with a slow-moving, luminous mist. Within it, faint silhouettes drift, Massive, elegant, almost invisible, except for the occasional shimmer of light running along their outlines. They move slowly, gracefully, like thoughts drifting through water. The pilot stares, unable to speak. Those aren't fish. No, the biologist whispers. They're neurons. Her words hang in the air like a revelation. We're inside a brain, she breathes. This whole trench, it's a living neural system. The ocean isn't alive in it. The ocean is it. The narrator's voice is low, trembling with awe. And in that instant, they understood. They were not exploring the ocean. They were inside its mind. The pulse continues. Louder now. Faster. The light from the chamber floods the sub, every instrument flickering uncontrollably. The pattern on the screen begins to accelerate. 3, 1, 3, 5, 1, repeating endlessly until suddenly it stops. And then a new symbol appears, a perfect circle. The narrator's tone fades to a whisper. The circle, the oldest shape, the beginning and the end made one. The abyss has finished its sentence. The biologist closes her eyes. It's not waiting anymore, she murmurs. It's listening. The sub drifts closer toward the glowing chamber, pulled by invisible currents. The pilot reaches for the controls, but deep down, they both know control was never theirs. And somewhere in the depths, the ocean's mind, vast, ancient, eternal, opens wider. The abyss is awake. The glow from the chamber is no longer distant. It surrounds them, soft at first, then more intense, until every surface inside the sub gleams with reflected light. The air hums. The instruments hiss faintly. The hum grows into a vibration that seems to echo not in their ears, but in their bones, in the marrow itself, as if their bodies have become part of the resonance. The pilot grips the armrests, but his knuckles blur in his vision, like his hands are no longer completely solid. The narrator's voice drifts like a current through the sound. In the deepest silence, there are no borders, not between thought and matter, not between observer and observed. The sea dissolves the illusion of separateness until what looks back at you is yourself. The biologist watches the light with her pupils wide. Do you feel that? She whispers. It's syncing with our rhythm, with our heartbeat. The monitors confirm it. Faint pulses matching the human cardiac cycle. Every time her heart beats, the lights in the chamber flare slightly brighter. The pilot's eyes widen. It's reading us. Not just reading, she says softly. It's harmonizing. Outside the window, the luminous mist swirls in thick patterns. The silhouettes of the drifting entities, those neuron-like beings, begin to draw closer, forming slow arcs around the sub. Each one emits faint tendrils of light that stretch and curve like neural pathways. For a moment, they resemble thought itself made visible, an ocean of cognition spreading endlessly across the trench. The sub trembles gently. A soft chime sounds from the CUM system, but there's no source. No signal, only the faintest whisper woven through static. It's not a word. It's a tone, like the echo of a voice trying to remember its shape. The biologist's hands hover above the controls, but she doesn't move. It's not dangerous, she says, as if convincing herself. It's curious. The pilot turns toward her, voice unsteady. Curious? It's inside our systems. Look at the feed. Everything's cross-linked. He's right. The screens that once displayed pressure, temperature, and oxygen now show moving lines of light that twist and rearrange themselves into fluid, symbolic patterns. At first, they look like language, then like DNA sequences, then like constellations. The narrator's tone deepens. The deeper they looked, the less it resembled chaos. Patterns repeated, in sound, in pulse, in light. A universal geometry that seemed to thread through every living thing. A signature written across existence itself. The pilot breathes heavily. It's showing us something. But what? The biologist closes her eyes. Not showing, sharing. She presses her palm against the glass again. Instantly, the light outside brightens. A ripple flows outward from the spot where her hand touches. The pulse travels through the mist like an expanding wave, until every glowing silhouette responds with synchronized movement. Then, through the subs comes, a tone rises. Low, harmonic, almost mournful. It's not random. It's a chord. And within it, faint layers emerge, melodic strands interwoven like a choir rising from the deep. Each tone seems to carry emotion, memory, intention. It is communication not of words, but of feeling. The biologist whispers, "It's a song." The pilot's throat tightens. No, it's a memory, because as the tones rise, images bloom in their minds. Not on the monitors, inside them. Visions that feel too vast, too ancient to belong to human consciousness. The sense of endless water, black and cold, folding through eons. The touch of sunlight piercing the surface for the first time. The slow stirring of molecules finding each other. The first cell dividing in the dark. They see it, feel it, not as observers, but as participants. The sensation of being both ocean and life at once. The narrator's voice becomes slower, reverent. What if the ocean remembers every birth, every death, every spark of life it ever gave? What if it is not a sea of salt and water, but a memory field, the living archive of evolution? The biologist gasps softly. "It's showing me faces." "What faces?" The pilot asks, but then he sees them too. Shapes forming in the light. Faces of creatures long, extinct. Trilobites, ammonites, behemoth shadows of leviathans from eras forgotten by history. And then, faces of early humans standing at the edge of an ocean, their eyes reflecting the same faint light. The connection is unmistakable. "It remembers us," she says. "It's known us since before we knew ourselves." The hum intensifies. The chamber's walls pulse brighter. The neural entities draw nearer, their tendrils now brushing faintly against the sub's hull, leaving trails of light that do not fade. The metal doesn't corrode. It changes. The hull shimmers, as though its molecules are rearranging to match the same fractal geometry of the trench. Inside, their instruments go blank. Only the heartbeat-like pulse remains. Then, everything stops. Silence. For a moment, even the sea seems to have forgotten how to move. Then a single, soft tone, one note, pure and perfect, rings through the sub, filling every corner with resonance. It feels like language, but older than words. And within that tone, a faint echo begins to form. Voices, layered and distant, like thoughts spoken underwater. The biologist's eyes widen. "It's speaking." The pilot stares at her. "You understand it?" She shakes her head slowly. "No, I feel it." Her voice trembles. "It's saying we were never separate. It's saying we are. It's memory, walking on land." The narrator breathes, voice low and rhythmic. Perhaps humanity did not leave the ocean. Perhaps it only rose to the surface, carrying the deep inside its blood, its cells, its pulse. Every heartbeat, a faint echo of the tides. The light begins to dim, not fading but folding inward, as if retreating into itself. The neural forms drift back, their silhouettes dissolving into the mist. The biologist's hand slides away from the glass, leaving only a faint warmth on the surface. She exhales, trembling. "It's done." The pilot shakes his head slowly. "No, it downloaded something. Into us. Look at this." He taps the biometric monitor on his wrist. The readings pulse erratically, not dangerously, but rhythmically, perfectly matching the sonar pattern they had sent before. Her heartbeat syncs to it too. The realization spreads between them like the tide. The pattern has entered them. The narrator's voice grows soft, fading into the hum of the trench. And in that moment, the explorers became the explored. The line between mind and ocean dissolved, replaced by a shared rhythm, a single consciousness breathing through two bodies. The trench remains silent. The lights fade to black. Only the memory of the pattern lingers in the air, like the final note of a song that refuses to end. Far above, the surface of the Atlantic lies calm, unaware that something vast and ancient has awakened again, not beneath the sea, but within the minds of those who dared to listen. The subsystems flicker once more. A faint final message appears on the primary display, not in code, not in sound, but in words, simple, human words that send a chill through their veins. You have returned. The narrator pauses, voice soft as the tide pulling back from the shore. And the abyss, for the first time in eternity, remembered its name. The sub ascends slowly through the trench, but something has changed, not in the machines, not in the sea, but in them. The silence inside feels too alive, as though the water itself is listening. The hum that once surrounded them now moves within them, a rhythm too synchronized to be coincidence. It pulses softly behind their eyes, in their bones, in the beat of their hearts. Outside, the world is no longer the same black void they first entered. The water glows faintly, not from any external light source, but from thin ribbons of bioluminescence weaving through the current, as if the ocean itself has veins and something vast flows through them. The pilot looks at the readouts. The depth gauge wavers, then blanks out entirely. They're still rising, yet the instruments refuse to tell how far. He exhales, his breath fogging the glass. We should have hit 6,000 meters by now. The biologist doesn't answer. She's staring at her reflection in the viewport, or rather, at what's behind it. Her pupils flicker faintly with the same glow as the trench light. It's subtle, but unmistakable. It's not letting us go, she murmurs. The current isn't physical anymore. It's pulling through thought. The pilot turns toward her sharply. What are you talking about? We're ascending. She shakes her head. No, we're being read. The words linger like a riddle. Outside, tendrils of light begin to gather, converging around the sub in slow spirals. They resemble currents, but move against logic, circling upward, downward, and sideways all at once. Every pulse matches their heartbeat perfectly. The narrator's voice drifts in, low and deliberate, like an echo rising from the deep. There are no boundaries here, no true up or down. When the ocean breathes, reality bends. And within that breath, the explorers began to feel something impossible, memory bleeding into existence. The pilot frowns. Memory? But the biologist already knows. Her hands tremble as she touches the glass again, not out of curiosity but recognition, because what appears beyond it is not the deep, it's land. The faint outline of a shoreline, waves collapsing against rock, clouds drifting through a silver sky. The impossible projection hovers just beyond the glass, flickering like a dream breaking through water. It's showing us. Surface memory, she whispers. But then the image ripples. The ocean shifts. The shoreline fractures, twisting into 1,000 smaller reflections. She gasps, because each reflection shows a different time, a different age. One moment, the coastlines of the modern world. The next, the prehistoric shorelines of primeval Earth. Then again, the same sea, but frozen in ice, bathed in fire, covered in strange, alien colors. The narrator continues. The ocean remembers its faces, every tide, every age. It remembers what the continents have forgotten. The pilot grips the controls tightly. We're hallucinating. Pressure's too high. No, she interrupts. Pressure's constant. This isn't the water changing. It's us. For the first time, the light from outside begins to respond not just to movement, but to emotion. When she leans closer, her breath fogging the glass, the light grows warmer, spreading through the viewport like sunrise. When he retreats, tense and afraid, it dims to cold blue. The entire ocean around them mirrors their internal state. He whispers, "It's alive." She shakes her head slowly. "No, it's conscious." The sub tilts slightly as another current catches them. A slow rotation, steady and deliberate, as if something immense beneath them is moving. A shape stirs in the mist below, massive and indistinct. The water trembles. For a fleeting second, the biologist feels it again. That familiar awareness pressing gently against her thoughts. The same intelligence that spoke in light, now whispering through the current itself. The voice is not sound, it's an impression. A thought, ancient and untranslatable. The narrator breathes. It was not language as we know it. It was recognition. The same awareness that shaped coral into labyrinths and carved trenches deeper than light could reach. The sea does not speak, it remembers. And in that remembrance, it recognizes what belongs to it. The pilot clutches his chest suddenly. His breathing quickens. "It's in me," he gasps. "It's..." But then he stops. Not in pain, in awe. The pulse that once terrified him now synchronizes perfectly with his own rhythm. His panic dissolves, replaced by an overwhelming calm. The sound of his own heartbeat echoes faintly through the cabin, amplified somehow by the hull. The biologist watches in silence, tears welling in her eyes. "It's merging us," she says softly. "Not taking, connecting." The shape below becomes clearer, a slow, endless coil of movement, neither creature nor current. It pulses with faint bioluminescence, like the ocean's neural network stretching for miles. And somewhere inside it, something watches. Not as a predator, not as prey, but as an ancestor. The narrator's tone deepens. Perhaps the giant squids, the leviathans, even the plankton, all are merely cells in a greater body. And humanity, walking on land, is the ocean's forgotten organ, still pulsing with its rhythm. What they discovered in the trench was not alien. It was home. Outside, the ribbons of light begin to tighten around the sub, forming geometric spirals, sacred, symmetrical, deliberate. The sea is no longer fluid. Its structure, forming itself into patterns that resemble the architecture of coral, bone, and brain tissue. The biologist's voice trembles. "It's creating something." The pilot nods slowly. "Or revealing something that was already there." Then the impossible happens. The patterns shift, forming a reflection of the sub itself. A perfect luminous twin, hovering just beyond reach, mirroring every motion, every breath. Only this reflection isn't mechanical. It looks organic. The same shape, but alive. Glowing faintly, its surface rippling like the skin of a whale. The sub and its reflection float together in silence, two beings staring into each other's existence. The biologist whispers, "Is that us?" The pilot's voice is barely audible. "Maybe it's what we were." Before we learn to leave the water, the light outside pulses once more. Brighter, warmer, softer, until everything is drowned in a luminous haze. Then the reflection fades. The spirals dissolve. The hum quiets. They are alone again. But inside the sub, the heartbeat still echoes, not from either of them, but from the metal itself.